Hello, what is up guys? EvilDuosArm here today, back with another Black Desert video. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you my impressions of the game based on my experience, which represents over 2 years of playing this game. And while my channel may be known as one of the best BDO resources on the internet for new players, I will do my best to provide you a completely unbiased overview of the game and what you can expect. This is not sponsored content. I don't do any sponsored content on this channel, just a fellow MMORPG fan here trying to help you decide if BDO is the right game for you to pick up or return to. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into it. Let's start with a quick overview. BDO is primarily a single-player experience for your first 40 hours of gameplay while you work through the storyline and learn the basics of the game. After that, the game will kind of drop you in the middle of a massive open world, and you'll be left to choose your own path through it from dozens of available options. Generally speaking, though, most people pick from a few of the different life skills that are available, PvE mob grinding, or various PvP modes. Your endgame will consist of performing one or more of these different gameplay experiences in order to accrue wealth in the game, then you use that wealth to progress your gear, and then ultimately repeat the cycle over and over again. For this adventure, you're going to have 21 classes to choose from. However, these classes are gender locked, which might make your character creation a bit frustrating. That being said, each one has some pretty fun gameplay mechanics, so it's definitely worth checking out a few of them. Now, the first thing you're going to notice after you pick out your class and get started playing is going to be the combat of this game. It's about as close to true action combat as you're going to get in an MMORPG. There are a few abilities that have assisted aiming on them, and of course there's an assisted aiming setting that was actually recently added for newer players. However, using either of these features is generally more of a handicap than a help. No matter what class you pick, you're going to feel the weight behind every single attack, the animations are amazing, and the pace of the skills is fantastic. All around, it's probably my most favorite combat system I've ever played in any MMORPG. Now, the game itself breaks away from the holy trinity of classes in MMORPGs, and that every class is expected to be able to heal, tank, and DPS. This is because currently, in-game, there exists no typical PvE type of dungeon or raid. These are slated to be added in expansions for mid-2021, but at the time of this video, nothing. That said, there are classes that are better at each of these roles than others, but you aren't limited to only tanking if you pick a tank class. You can do a ton of AoE damage or something like that, etc, etc. Every class has a difficulty assigned with it, and like any MMORPG, there is always a meta. I'm not going to cover the meta in this video. You can look online whenever you watch this and find out a tier list, but I would strongly recommend playing a class you will enjoy the gameplay of, rather than a meta chaser. Example now is that Ninja is very strong in the current meta, however you'll probably have arthritis in a week of playing. Likewise, they've added a new feature called gear tagging that allows you to copy your gear onto a second character, like 2 full-on copies of it, so you can play both characters. This means you can always swap to the Flavor of the Month class whenever you want, and should really focus on playing a character you enjoy at the start. Now, it's a good thing that Black Desert has such a variety of characters and combat systems because you're going to be doing a lot of fighting in this game. Since dungeons aren't out at the time of this video, the most viable PvE endgame activity is grinding mobs for drops and loot. There are dozens of locations in the game, each with a different gear requirement that provides drops. As you get better gear, you can do better spots, get better drops, and repeat the process over and over. These spots can either be solo, or as you progress towards the mid-game, they become multiplayer where you and your friends can get together and grind the spots while sharing the loot. This is the primary PvE combat method by which players progress. However, there are also server-wide bosses, which can be random or have a set time depending on what boss you're fighting. For these bosses, the entire server, or multiple servers in some cases, will get together to defeat them and acquire the loot. There are also Dark Earth bosses, which are 1v1 boss fights. Think of like a Dark Souls boss fight for you and you only. Those also drop the same sorts of loot. Now, while you're out doing your PvE grinding, either with your friends or by yourself, you're likely at some point going to run into the first form of PvP available in the game, and that is open world PvP. After level 50, you are open to be engaged on in open world PvP, or if you want to engage on someone else, you can do that as well, as long as they're above level 50. There's very few restrictions to this, basically as long as you're not in a safe zone. Now, generally speaking, this doesn't happen too often. More often than not, people have a little bit of courtesy and they ask you to duel for the spot that you're currently in because they want to take it from you. But of course, you'll always run into the chads that are just going to show up, kill you, and take your rotation. You actually don't lose anything for this other than the loading screen time, and they lose some karma, which if they do this enough times will make them a red player and put them at risk of losing gear. I just want to mentally prepare you because eventually this is going to happen to you and you are going to get sad. I also want to add that if you end up killing the person that tried to kill you, you're going to feel like $1,000,000, so it definitely has its pros as well. Now, if you're into PvP but don't want to gank people or don't want to kill people while they're AFK riding their horses between cities, you have a few structured options as well. The first are Guild Wars, Node Wars, and Sieges, and being totally honest with you, I have very little experience with these game modes. It's a combat mode reserved primarily for heavily geared players. Now, there are some Node Wars that require less gear, but I haven't tried them myself, and I really don't want to give you any information that's wrong on those. Now, the second type of structured PvP is the Red Battlefield, which is a medium-scale team deathmatch game mode. Depending on the lobby, you could either find a bunch of new players who are just getting into the game or have like similar gear to you, and the gameplay will actually be pretty fun. Or you could get unlucky and get grouped up with the Node War or Siege War guilds that are just trying to beat the heck out of each other in Red Battlefield, and it'll be a miserable time for you. Now, coming up in mid-2021, there will be a 10 versus 10 ranked game mode similar to something like League of Legends, where there's going to be a world championship and all that magical stuff. There's also going to be the introduction of server wars, which will pit the entire server against another entire server. The last major arc that people are going to play in Black Desert is going to be one of the many life skills, or several of the many life skills. There are 11 main ones in total, each with their own subcategories, but these categories are gathering, processing, fishing, hunting, cooking, alchemy, horse trading, trading goods between cities, farming, or sailing boats and trading goods between different islands. I personally am a huge fan of the life skills, and I dabble in just about all of them. I find them super fun and relaxing, and it's a great way to enjoy the game. You will rarely run into someone who's a jerk in this category of players, and the other two groups, that being PvE combat and PvP players, generally leave life skillers alone since they provide items that they need to progress their characters. I have hours of life skill guides on my channel, so if you do end up wanting to play the game or want to see more information about life skills, please check them out. It's one of my favorite ways to play the game. I've got tons of content on it. But anyway, those are the three major paths for gear progression in the game. It is a Korean MMO, so be prepared to gear grind. Now, that being said, there have been recent additions that allow new players to catch up just below the first soft cap in the game within their first month of playing, something that would have probably taken roughly a year before this. Now, as far as the game world itself, I've already said it earlier, but this game is massive. There's a massive desert, ocean, tons of territories to cover. If I had to guess, end to end, you're looking at over an hour of travel time from the furthest corner of the ocean to the opposite side of the desert. This is awesome, but also sucks because there's no fast travel. So be prepared for some long travel times. Most people deal with this by building up a little home base at a city close to where they like to play, and then they pack up their home base and move to the next city as they progress their character around the map and through the various difficulties of the game. The story itself takes place in this open world, and as such feels like any other open world game you've played. You go to this map location, gain some knowledge, kill some stuff over there, solve a puzzle, and move on to the next map location. The story does do its job of showing you the world, teaching your class, and helping you to progress. I can't think of a time, though, during it where any selection I made from the story made a difference in the outcome. However, there are certain points where you can make a choice that will allow you a second or third story arc. So if you are into the story and want to see how it all plays out, you're going to have to play through the game at least 3 times. The story itself is not going to take you to every location in the game, however, so there's a ton of exploration left to be done after you finish it, and exploration of these areas provides you bonuses, so you are incentivized to go out and explore the game. Now, graphically speaking, Black Desert has to be the best looking MMORPG currently available in the West at the time of this video. Nothing even holds a candle to it. Performance-wise, I'm running a GTX 1070 with an i7700K processor, and I'm having no issues running this game in the remastered mode while streaming and recording. Large-scale PvP does sometimes have FPS drops, but never below 30 for me, and dropping graphics usually fix this issue. Moving on to gear progression, it is absolutely painful in this game. You have a percent chance for success at each enhancement, failing will downgrade your item but increase your percent chance, and you basically rotate this percent chance through your gear, hoping to upgrade one piece, then you repeat the process through all the stuff you just downgraded. Very unfun, I absolutely hate it. Fortunately, with updates in the last few years, they've added the ability to purchase gear from other players, so somebody else can suffer through the upgrading for you, and then you just pay them a premium for that pain. Statistically speaking, it is slightly better if you have the right fail stack and setup to upgrade the gear yourself, but I hate dealing with it, and being able to just purchase gear off the market and avoid this entire bullcrap does feel pretty darn nice, I'm not gonna lie. So you have 2 options for gear progression. You can either suffer the percentage chance to upgrade, or you can just buy the gear off of the central market, using in-game currency, of course. Now, as far as what gear you're going to be buying, there are different builds for all the different classes, different meta builds, I should say. However, with how stats work in the game, you do have some build flexibility if you want to try some off-meta stuff, but be prepared to be called a meme, since creativity isn't allowed in a video game. And the last thing to cover in any video that's going to go over an MMORPG is going to be the cash shop. BDO's cash shop has a lot of pay for convenience in it, from EXP buffs, increased drop rate pets, the ability to remotely repair gear, outfits with character buffs, and even protection from failing enhancements. It definitely can be seen as pay to win by some definitions. I personally have spent $200 on this game, and I don't feel any closer to winning though, so don't really know if it is pay to win. But you can definitely pay for easier progression and a lot of convenience as you work towards improving your gear. At the end of the day though, nothing is necessary from this Pearl shop here, and you can still be competitive in the different game modes as a truly free-to-play player, beyond the initial purchase of the game, of course. There's nothing in there that I feel like, wow, I need to buy this or else my life is going to be miserable. There's lots of events that give away free stuff that all falls under this Pearl shop category. So if you play the game for long enough, you're basically going to get everything you need as a free-to-play player. Like for example, within the last year, we've gotten 3 tier 4 pets that we can use on our account. That's the max tier of pet. It's great for when you go out and grind and all of those different things. So lots of opportunity to get cash shop items as a free-to-play player. But all in all, if you have never played Black Desert Online before, or you've been away for a while, the game is 100% worth playing. With all of the expansions, the ability to buy gear off the market and bypass the upgrade system, and the new catch-up mechanics that have been added into the game, you will easily get your $10 out of this. Additionally, we have a lot to look forward to coming in 2021, including dungeons, more expansions, ranked PvP modes, and even more on top of that. So if you decide to pick up the game, be sure to check out my YouTube channel for all sorts of new player-specific guides, and if you would, please consider subscribing. I'm pushing for 100K this year, and I would greatly appreciate your support. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you at the next YouTube video right here, a next Twitch live stream, or wherever I happen to see you. Peace.